Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. It's always a pleasure to review books which have come to us from the Child Poverty Action Group, because they cover a very important area of welfare law, which I think is of fundamental assistance to everybody involved, mainly people who've got very little money but do need a lot of advice. And this is in areas where the regulations are absolutely impenetrable. Most of them are ridiculously complicated. They really do need to have a very serious look at modernising the use of English and trying to sort out some of the ridiculous provisions that are included, which makes it very, very difficult to advise people. Having got that off my chest, let's talk about the book itself, because I'm sure students will agree entirely with what I have to say. This is actually the CPAG book, which is the Student Support and Benefits Handbook. The academic year and a calendar year too, it's 2016 to 17. It's the 13th edition now and covers England and Wales and Northern Ireland, not Scotland, which has a separate book and a separate jurisdiction. Now, my wife Elizabeth and I talked about this book, delighted that CPAG and the NUS have covered the ground together in what is a very affordable book, which all students should have a copy of. I say, quote, an absolute must for students, an established handbook in the celebrated CPAG Advice Series of annual publications. That's what it is. Now, let's have a look at the book. There it is there. And there is the spine, and there is a little bit of information on the back. It's not a big book. It runs to 330 odd pages. There's an index at the back, and that is specifically on page numbering, if you're looking for anything in particular. It's quite a detailed index, and then after the index there are three, I think it's three appendices, yes, things like abbreviations and so forth, and things like useful addresses, and also on Appendix 1, general information advice. You will see in the book the shaded area are the chapter areas, which you should be able to find because each chapter has got a number and that tells you which chapter it is. The front of the book, this is the front page here, this is there, and then after that we've got some detail. There's some blurb about the CPAG and the details. Then there's some information about the authors, who are David Malcolm, Lynn Condell and Angela Toll. Been updated by those three people. Thank you very much to all three of you. The law is as at the 1st of September 2016. I'm recording this in the early part of 2017. That's the index section, contents, front. You see it runs all the way through. Just make sure you know what you've actually got in there. It runs to a total of 27 chapters, and as I say, something like the total number of pages here is 330, 340. 3 appendices and notes. There's a foreword at the beginning which explains what this book is all about, and there's something else which I'd like to point out, and that is how to use this handbook. Now, the Child Poverty Action Group are actually very good at setting out how you use the handbooks because they really are quite important. They've also got the abbreviations, which are the front and at the back, and they I think are very helpful. These are the means tested benefit rates for the current year. Yeah, it's the academic year and financial year, probably 2016 to 17, but it's basically currently up to date until we have another budget. There's the information there. Non-means tested benefits there, and then you've got after that we get into part 1, student support. Then you see the structure of the book. There's a little bit of an index for each chapter. You should be able to find what you're looking for quite quickly. Basic information, and then it runs through. Now when you look at the book, you'll find if there's any footnoting, you will find that at the back of the chapter marked notes. So there's no footnoting at the bottom. There is a little bit of paragraph numbering. There's the footnotes. You see how detailed they are in terms of regulations. It's mainly regs, which are of direct relevance. But there's very limited paragraph numbering. It's an excellent little book. And as I say, every student should have a copy. You should know what your rights are. This is This is something which I think CPAG as a service which is offered to students is absolutely top hole, to use an expression, because it is. It's a first class service. It's good, and frankly it's really the best way of explaining the myriad of problems with the regulations. And I'm not in the least bit dramatising the fact that these regulations are frankly ridiculously complex. You give the civil service or local government a chance, I'll make them even more complex, and I'd like to see a little bit more sense coming into the equation. Now, having said that, CPAG's mission is to produce an annual, in this case an annual established work called Student Support and Benefits Handbook 2016 to 17. It will be known, of course, to many for its detail and sage advice. And as I said, all students should get it. It's now in its 13th edition, written by and updated by David Malcolm, Lynn Condell and Angela Tolan, and it's been described as the definitive up-to-date practical guide to financial support for students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and that's exactly what it is. I'm glad we have it, because there's a lot of confusion, in my view, about what is and is not an entitlement, and I think that this at least tries to set the record straight. Let's face it, not just students, learners, whatever you want to call them, parents as well, sometimes don't have that much of an idea about what is available to them. You go to your MP or your counsellor and you're going to find probably that a lot of them don't know either, because as I've said, the regulations are complex. But this book, I think, is a wonderful guide to help you. The CPAG have produced this title in a collaboration with the NUS, and the latest edition contains all the current rules on student support and on students' entitlement to benefits and tax credits. That includes the substantial changes on student grants and loans now taking place. And it's, of course, CPAG's mission to provide a trusted and expert source of information and advice for the welfare rights and advice community. And they do just that, and they go, in my view, much further than that, which is why I think that when we review these books, we think these are special informative works which benefit the people who are frankly in the more difficult circumstances within society, and they need this sort of help. And frankly, in times of austerity, they're not going to get that much. So I'm grateful to the charity for the work it does. As an organisation, of course, CPAG works on behalf of the 1 in 4 children who are growing up in poverty. If you think about it, in 2017, that's pretty bad. It shouldn't be like that, but it is, and we have to do something about it. So learners are, of course, no exception to the growing ranks of people affected by the policy of austerity as the country continues to embark on one of its greatest recent journeys, and that's leaving the EU for good or ill. We have to bear that in mind, because in the longer term, not the shorter term, but the longer term, there are going to be implications, no question about it. We just have to see how they all pan out. Now, we found, as usual, and with gratitude, that there is a most useful summary of tables in the book, included throughout, enabling you to ensure that you have the most up-to-date information available for reference. And I do think it's pretty good. I'd like to think of something that's as cheap and as good as this, frankly, because I don't think I've seen one. The step-by-step guides are relatively simple, and they also add to help assist with calculating benefit entitlement in the light of student income, which may have to be declared. And let's face it, a lot of students do have some form of income. CPAG are also developing and campaigning for policy solutions by including accurate current information in addition to their training programs, which are worth considering, and the advice available to those who work for and advise on behalf of hard-up families. And I think the point to stress here, as we regularly do, of course, is that being an advisor can be greatly assisted by the CPAG handbook publications. This is just one of them. And this one gives you, I think, the right financial support for families who need it. And much of that need is about finding and selecting the right information and knowing your way around the system. What is particularly relevant for the legal profession and the wider community affected by legal and administrative decisions is the high-profile legal work which CPAG carries out to establish and confirm family rights for the most hard up in society. Also, it's the established series of handbooks that they produce, many of them now available annually, that people turn to because they remain a massive additional support for all of us. And frankly, they do make our lives a lot easier. You will find this in the libraries, you should find it in the CABs, and it should be available, I hope, in universities throughout the country. Let me conclude by saying this. Advisors will find the cross-referencing to UK and European legislation and case law authorities, plus the detailed index at the back of the handbook, most useful for all involved in student support and benefit issues at what is such a turning point for us today, in that such vulnerable people are sort of looked at and considered and treated by the state and society generally, because we have to see where the balance comes in as we take another political sort of turn in our lives. Now, as I said, the law is as stated at the 1st of September 2016, and it includes regulations laid, judgments delivered up to that date. Can I also say that I'm recording this in 2017, at the beginning of 2017, and be prepared for another edition to come on the market in due course. There's the book again. There's the spine. Some nice little comments, which you can see on the back there, and the other detail there. Opening it up in the middle, we're looking at housing benefit, who is eligible. Again, cross-referring to what you need as students. It's the Student Support and Benefits Handbook itself, but it covers a lot of additional information. Universal credit is also included, because that's, again, another substantial change which the government made, and it's a move towards an attempt at harmonisation. There's bound to be criticisms, but I mean, we do have to start reviewing, I think, in a much more sensible way, how we actually produce the benefits that people should be entitled to and the help they should be given, certainly in the earlier and more formative years of their lives. Obviously, it's all part and parcel of the general welfare law policies, which any government has responsibility for. It doesn't matter what political shade they are. And I'd like to thank CPAG again and all the people involved in publishing and producing this work. It's of immense help to all of us, and get a copy if you're a student. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.